Hey there, my name's Austin. I'm a product designer at GitLab. I work in the managed stage for the compliance group. Today I wanted to run you through some solution validation that I did to investigate a proposal that we came up with last fall, talk a little bit about the insights that we had and what we're going to do with those, what we're going to do next. So in the fall, we were looking into this idea of how can we provide a mechanism to bypass the protections that exist to prevent changes from going into your default branch or your production branch rather. And a scenario in which this might arise is, let's say you work for a large organization. They've given the ability to approve merge requests to only a handful of individuals, and those individuals happen to all be out. And there's a production outage on a Friday evening, can't get a hold of those approvers, and so now you're stuck. There's a requirement for those approvals to happen before anything can be merged. So in that case, what do? The option you're left with is getting the right administrators into GitLab, dismantling your settings so that you can allow changes to go through, which is risky, and then putting those back once the change is in. That's really your only workaround that you could do unless those individuals came back. And so what we sought out to do was break down this idea into a couple of different strategies of ways to implement it. We looked into a bunch of different UI elements. I won't go through all the terrible iterations that we had, but we went all the way from like creating its own widget on a different compliance dashboard for approving these types of requests, because essentially we wanted there to be some level of accountability. So 2 eyes looking over this was what we kept saying. Like, we don't want just one person to be able to have this power. We want there to be someone to submit and request this type of approval. And so where we eventually led to, we had 2 scenarios that we ran. And so we ended up calling this the force merge capability. And so we had a scenario for the software developer, and we had a scenario for a group owner. That's a role that's more specific to GitLab. And so for the software developer, essentially what we were presenting them with was, let's say you've created this change to fix a bug in production and all of your approvers are out, like I was saying earlier. What would you do next? And the thing that we had presented in our UI was essentially a little message to them in the merge widget container saying, if you have an emergency, contact your group owners, they can take care of it for you. What we saw was no one ever saw this message. This might be because our merge request widget itself is, at least the merge request page, is overloaded with a lot of information. So this one line was buried. The one person that did identify it understood what it meant, understood who to go to. So that was cool, but it wasn't obvious that this was value add to the UI. So what I'm opting for, at least, is to not implement anything from the developer's point of view. But there is a functionality we want to further explore for the people that might be group owners. So these are the people that you tend to give more administrative privilege to in GitLab. They have more authority to affect the settings. They tend to also have the code owner responsibility as well. And so we were looking to what it might be like to give this person the ability to take existing merge requests and force merge them. So in our scenario, this would allow them to bypass everything, not just approvals, but also pipeline status, protected environments, merge request approval rules, anything you think of. Basically, you're just getting an ability to force this change right into production, which I understand is a risky idea. And this is why we're going through so much solution validation, because we don't want to introduce a change that could definitely break the experience, put any applications at risk. We're just trying to investigate how can we make this platform more usable and flexible for the people that use it. There are teams that really don't run some of these risks, and maybe they'll never set up the protections to prevent those changes from going in the first place, but perhaps there are those instances where you want to just have this one backdoor capability in case you need to fall back on it. What we learned, though, was everybody told us, this is a bad idea, you probably shouldn't do this, don't make this easy. But there were some really nice ideas that a lot of the candidates presented that created some really neat action items for going back and redesigning the experience. So we went from having a little bit more of a experience where, yes, you see this button, it's buried under all this other content, so it's non-obvious, and we're trying to tell you, hey, you can force this change in if you'd like to, and we were adding a little bit of friction. We weren't putting much, but we heard some pretty creative ideas, and so what I ended up taking on after that was how we could continue to evolve this. And so how it would look today in this proposal is, let's say you come in, there's a merge request, it's awaiting approvals. You will have the ability to force merge only if it's also passed the things like the pipelines and all your other rules. So we're considering to scope back the amount of ability to bypass certain protections. So one thing we heard most often was the approvers blockage is a human one that can't necessarily be automated or fixed without people. So that might be the most likely case where you might want to force a change in. And so what would happen is if you click on this, you then see, hey, this might break your build. And the new components I introduced here were 100% from our candidates providing some really neat ideas. Everyone said they would only do this change if they were very confident, like 100% confident. So we're thinking about putting a Likert scale in. Anything that's less than 100% confident, we don't recommend doing this. We want our users to be confident in what they're doing, and if they're not, this should not be the route that they go. We also were considering adding a message space to document why is this necessary. This might just show up as a comment in the thread of a merge request, but an uneditable comment too. One that would just at least be able to document who did this and why. And then to tie into my group, we would add a compliance violation to the report to show that there was a change that was forced in and it bypassed approvers, which is not ideal, but in a situation where it's make or break for your production, maybe you're losing thousands of dollars because you can't get orders to go through because your production is down and you're waiting for the 3 or 4 people to come back online, this might be an extra workaround. And then lastly, what we were changing in the UI was instead of just saying merge, we'd say force merge to show that this was a different path that was taken. Now, where are we at? We're kind of still in solution validation. I would love to take this in front of more customers or with more individuals that might see a need for this. So, hey, if you think this would be useful for your team, let me know in the comments. Feel free to comment on this issue. I would love to hear more feedback from the wider GitLab community. We're open for feedback, but I really wanted to just kind of show the thought process that we are going down, some of the research that we had to help support some of our ideas, but also why we're just hesitant to just immediately jump into building it. We still need to go out and validate that this is truly solving a problem, and so since we've scoped back some of the features in terms of the ability to go past everything, we want to make sure this is still valuable before we dedicate development time to it. That's it. I hope this was insightful for you. If you stuck towards the end, appreciate you hanging around.